And welcome back. We are now at the point where we can start adding things like colliders to our players, so that way we can start interacting with things such as the environment or enemies or stuff like that. So to get started, let's go ahead and hit Add Component, and I'm going to choose a box collider. Now this box collider is, of course, starting off pretty small here. Its size is 1, 1, 1. So let's just scale it up to, let's just do, how about 5, 5, 5, just to get a little more size here. And you can see that it is going not exactly to the size of the player, but that's okay. We are going to set this up so it's a little bit more forgiving. I'm actually just going to click right here on these little editing bounding volume points so I can directly edit the shape here. And so I can, of course, scale this down a little bit. I'm okay if this does go outside the player a little bit here because, again, I'm not looking to be hyper precise here. I just want to make this in such a way that as I do go about editing this, I can kind of set this up in a way that is going to really give me a good feel for how this is going to be. And again, if you look here at the size, I can set up the centering points and stuff like that. So if I want to change the X direction, I can do that. If I want to change the Y direction, I can do that. So I'm going to bring that Y up a little bit and then maybe scale that Y down. Again, I can keep playing around with these values until I find a value that's pretty good. I think this will probably be good, at least for starting. I just want to check the nose of the ship here just a little bit. Looks like the nose does go out just a little bit, so I might actually want to just increase that Z scale just a little bit. And I'm not worried about it being super big, but I do want to make sure I hit is trigger because I want to make sure that we don't have any kind of accidental collision or balancing or anything that is going to happen from this box collider being on my player ship. Now, additionally to our box collider, we're going to need to add in a rigid body because, of course, we're going to want to have an actual structure for this thing to kind of operate off of. Now, we do, of course, have use gravity check. We don't need that because we're not interested in our player object falling. So we can just go ahead and uncheck that, and we'll just collapse that to get that out of the way. Now, to actually test this out here in our world, we're probably going to want to add something here for our player to collide with. Now, of course, you can see my player is here, but that's okay because we're just going to go to our project here. Let's go over to our imported assets here, and let's go ahead and find one of those different cartoon spaceships that we had before, and I'm going to go ahead and grab one of those prefabbed ones. Let's just go ahead, I'm going to grab this green one here right now, and let's go ahead and just drop that in our scene. And we want to set that up so that way when the game is running, the player is going to go ahead and encounter that. And of course, I may have to adjust this again a little bit because it's not exactly aligned in here with the player. So we want to kind of make sure that it's set to this similar position. So what I'm going to do is actually go to my player ship values. You can see they're all set to, the player is set here at 0, 0, 0. So let's actually just reset the transform on this guy. That should put him pretty close to where the player is. Boom, there he is. And he's quite large there. I'm actually just going to go ahead then and adjust him just a little bit. So actually, I'm just going to double click on him just to go there. There he is. And let's just go ahead and move him here because he is, again, kind of in the way. I don't want him necessarily right on top of the players. I'm just going to move him out just a little bit. And you can see in my game view, there he is. If I were to go ahead and start, you can see he's not here right where we were starting. So again, I'm going to have to do some adjustment, but this is okay just for some scaling purposes because he is, again, kind of large. So I'm going to just scale him down just a little bit here. I'm going to do like 0.8. Actually, we can keep him at 1 for now because we're just testing this out. And so in my ship here, I do need to add in here a box collider for him. I could do a capsule collider, but I think just keeping a box collider for now will probably be perfectly fine, just so that way I can go ahead and play around with that. And so let's just go ahead and scale that up. Let's just do 10 here, and let's go the Y direction. Let's do 10 there because we know that's quite large, and maybe 10 in the Z because he is kind of more boxy in his shape. And again, I'm going to grab this collider here. Let's just drag that on up. And we want to maybe, let's see, X looks pretty good because it is already kind of centered there on him pretty well. But I do want to bring that Y base up a little bit. So again, we can play around with this to kind of find the collider that we want. But again, if it's a little bit big, I'm not super worried about it because again, this is going to be mostly just for testing purposes. So as we collide into this collider here, it's not going to be the end of our world here if we can't exactly hit everything. So just shrink that down just a little bit more there. Maybe bring that up in the XY direction. And I think we'll be good. I just want to get a side view here just so we can see, make sure that looks pretty good. All right, it is going maybe a little bit more. I need to bring that back here. So let's expand that in the Z direction. And I think that'll be good. Again, I'll make some more adjustments here later to it because, again, biggest thing I want to do is just have this available for testing so I can go ahead and set this up in an environment that is going to be good for me to work with. That looks pretty good. Now, I went ahead and paused the video real quick because I was like, all right, where's my actual game starting? And I forgot my master timeline starting up here. So here's this position value. So if you had yours set up a little differently, that's fine. Maybe you have yours actually starting in the game where everything's lined up. But if you don't, that's okay. We can just come right here, copy our position value on the master timeline. I can go to my green ship. I can go ahead and paste that in. And then you can see when I actually go hit play, you can see it actually shows up here. But of course, that's not directly in my player's path. So I'm going to want to actually edit that a little bit. And this might cause some issues later. I'm going to add more things to the game. If you have this set to your player, you may not have some of these same positional issues. In fact, if I go to my player and I paste those in, boom, there we go. I got my player now in my scene view. That's going to take care of that issue here where we were previously hanging out all the way down there. So now I have this in my scene view. That looks a lot better. So let's go ahead and set this up with our player and enemy here. So I'm just going to go ahead and scooch this on ahead just so that way when I'm in my game view, it's going to be something that hopefully I collide directly with. And so if I test it out, looks like I do need to move that over just a little bit there. I don't want it necessarily too far away because, again, I want this to be something that I can very easily come into my game world, do some quick testing with. And I'm going to move that back just a little bit, maybe a little bit up. And so if we play that, you can see right there is our player, and we pass it. Okay, good. So we do have some collision potentially coming in here. And now it's time to head over to our scripts folder. And let's go ahead and create a collision script. So I'm just going to right-click, choose Create, make a new mono behavior script. And let's just go ahead and call this one, how about, we'll just call it collision. Or maybe we call it like collision behavior, collision handler. Actually, collision behavior sounds good there, just so we can have something a little more robust in terms of naming conventions. And then once that is created, we want to go ahead and make sure we attach that into our player ship here so it exists alongside our other scripts. All right, let's go ahead and drag that into our player. And so now we have that collision behavior script. Now, to test this out and make sure that our collision is working the way we want, we can go ahead and remove the start and update methods. And let's just go ahead and create a private void method that is going to go ahead and handle that. And of course, we've done things like this before, which of course with things like on trigger enter. And so when we do that, we of course get this collider with other of course referring to the collider that exists on the other object. And we can just add in a debug.log. And what I'm going to do here is actually I'm just going to have it say a message such as hit the enemy. And while this could be enough, I could make it more specific. In fact, let's just say hit. We'll leave it. How about enemy? And I'm just going to do a colon. And then I'm going to actually concatenate this in with, let's say, other.name. And that should say, hey, this is specifically calling out what is the name of that enemy that we have now collided with. What is the name of the game object that exists? And so back in Unity, let's go ahead and see if we can pull in this collision event. And so, boom, right there, hit enemy terrain, hit enemy green ship. Okay, so getting the hit enemy terrain because where our player is starting, there, if you look at how they are actually starting here, actually kind of below the terrain just a little bit here. And so that's why that one is kind of starting there. So I could actually take, for example, this player ship object, could actually move it up so it's not there. And just see how that affects. Now, it does, of course, affect the starting position of the player there just a little bit in terms of their position relative to the terrain. And, of course, they're a little bit out of whack with my scene because of where I move them to, because I should actually move the player object itself here and bring that up a little bit. That might make that a little bit better because then, again, it keeps this frame of reference and, boom, hit enemy object. Beautiful. Now, while we're in here poking around at the different things here, we can actually go revisit our particle system for our lasers because we actually have a thing in here for collision. So if I open this up, there's actually a thing in here that says send collision messages. So this is a great way for us to enable some of that. And of course, I need to make sure I do this to both of my lasers here. So let's go ahead and do that. And so now this is a way for us to send messages for collision with our particle system. Now, conversely, instead of going through and clicking each one of these individually, once I do one, because I made a prefab, I can actually go up here to my overrides and apply that. And so that will actually do both the left and right laser. So I'm not having to go through and click this for each one, which is going to be very handy. For example, let's say we had multiple lasers besides just these two. I wouldn't have to go through and do that for each individual one. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, of course, add in yet another script that's going to help determine the collision behavior for our lasers. Now, for this handling, we're actually not going to create like a collision laser or anything like that, but we're actually going to go ahead and preemptively make our enemy. So let's go ahead and make our enemy script. And let's go ahead and attach that to our green ship that's right up here. So we can just drag that in. And then let's go ahead and open that up into Visual Studio. All right, and so just like before, let's clean up our script here a little bit. And let's add in a new method. So just making a private void method. And this one's going to be, of course, on particle collision. And when we autocomplete that, you can see we get GameObject.other. What we want to do here, though, is not simply debug this because, well, we know that we're having collisions and stuff like that. We know that's working. Let's just go ahead, instead of doing a debug, let's just go ahead and just destroy the game object that we are currently working with. And so what we're going to do is destroy, what are we going to destroy? Well, we're going to destroy the game object, all right, that we are effectively colliding with. And so when those destroyed, they're going to destroy, boom, that should take care of it. And let's just see how this ends up looking in Unity. All right, let's go ahead and press play, switch to my scene view. All right, we flew right through that. Oh, I forgot to fire my lasers here, so let's get those going. Boom, and instantly you can see the enemy spaceship was destroyed. So excellent. So now we, of course, have set up collision. We have set up the ability to start destroying certain game objects. So things are looking pretty good for our game.